you'll hear the legal thing telling you it's being recorded and if you want to opt in or opt out. And I'll share my screen with the presentation, and we'll just go ahead and can everyone see that okay? Well, I guess I can't hear you, but Michael, can you hear that and see it?
I can.
Perfect. So we'll just go to the next slide. So I don't know wherever you want to start, Michael, but just let me know next, and I'll just wing it, and we'll go to the next slide.
All right. Thank you for joining us all this morning. Thanks to again to Maria for putting this together, and Lorianne Bundick of the Office of Emergency Management on campus for putting the slide deck together. My name is Michael Heafy. I retired in 2015, and I did volunteer for several years with the Office of Emergency Management, doing presentations not unlike this one to new employees. So I do have some background. I was also a facility manager, and I've lived in Southern California for over 30 years, so I've been through a number of earthquakes. Has anyone not experienced an earthquake, however lightweight it might have been? Okay, I understand most of you have a silenced microphone right now, but if you've lived in California long enough, you've had an earthquake. You felt one. Yeah.
I was gonna try to do something fancy and have a poll, but forget it. Never mind.
Yeah, as Maria writes, more than we'd like to have experienced. So please forgive me if I'm not completely familiar with this slide deck that Lorianne put together, which is really pretty good, and it has a lot of information, especially in the latter half of it, to help you be prepared for the next one. So as background, how often do magnitude 2 earthquakes happen? Slide, please. As you might expect, a lot more than we expected every minute. Yeah, I've got this blank bar that's obscuring part of the slide.
Yeah, I was trying to see how can I get rid of that.
But some of you don't feel them unless you happen to be at the epicenter of a magnitude 2 earthquake. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, stepping it up, how often do magnitude 5 earthquakes happen? And this, just judging by the back of the firefighter's jacket, looks like a Latin-speaking country, but the damage doesn't quite look as much as a 5 might be. Next slide, please. Bink. Every few days. So again, we're not always at the epicenter, but if the 4.2 that you had a couple of weeks ago out in the valley was any indication, just imagine that a little bit bigger. Oh, thanks for moving the bar. But it will throw stuff off shelves and damage buildings and scare the hell out of everybody. Next slide, please. Boom. Now this is really a devastating downlook on a magnitude 7 earthquake. And how often do they happen? Slide, please. Bink. Once a month. But since they're mostly underwater and those on land take place far away from populations or that could cause devastation, but they are out there. And we can expect one of those somewhere in Southern California through our incredible series of fault lines. If we have a magnitude 7, excuse me, it's going to be pretty darn devastating. Slide, please. So close to campus, there are a myriad of fault lines. And this shows both some history from 1933 and 1994 and the magnitude quake, and some of the other, although they're not dated, other sized quakes. And I live in Culver City, so basically the intersection of the 10 and the 405. Yeah, right around in that area. And there is an earthquake fault not too far from me. Oh, thank you, Judith. She writes in that her parents remember the 1933 although it was centered in Long Beach, I think, on the Inglewood Fault. That's the quake that caused a lot of the new construction guidelines for buildings in Southern California, since there was so much devastation. So, next slide, please. So along the Santa Monica Fault, predictions for a 6.6 magnitude quake. In educational buildings, 1 in 3 will have extensive or greater damage. So that is a lot of educational, and I would presume government buildings will be in pretty bad shape. Residential buildings, depending on their construction and their age, will probably survive better because they're able to move, not being built out of stone. I find these interesting here, this hospital functionality, that on day 1, 42%. That's pretty darn good for seismic survivability. And by day 30, after the quake, almost 100% back in function. Electrical service, basically 1 in 4 will have power, depending on where you are. And by day 3, SoCal Edison and DWP will have 58% of the power back. By day 7, a week after the quake, 76%. Pretty amazing. And I'm really surprised at water service. No disruption of water service, just given that they had another blowout on Sunset Boulevard of an old water main line right at Royce Drive and Stone Canyon, that there would be no disruption. But these are predictions. I'm not sure, and depending on your area, that these would be completely accurate. So there's
Is the educational building because they're older buildings and not retrofitted?
Well, I'm not sure if they're speaking specifically of UCLA, which has gone through a massive retrofitting of all the campus buildings. And especially after the '94 quake, which there was considerable damage to some of the older buildings. I know I did a video that was sent to FEMA about that when they were asking for almost $1 billion for campus to bring it back to usable condition. Oh dear. But the educational buildings, I think, yeah, some of them, like maybe high schools or older high schools, will probably not survive as well as, say, UCLA's campus, or newer buildings, I should say. Slide, please. So here's what you can do to keep yourselves safe at home. Obviously, be prepared now. And that little jolt out in the valley was a good reminder and to what to do in case of an emergency or an earthquake. Drop cover and hold on. And there's some pictographs coming that will be of help a little later on in the slide deck. Make sure that heavy items, furniture and pictures and bookcases are secured to the wall, and keep heavy items in those cases lower to the shelf. So they're, a 20-pound vase is not flinging itself off the top of a bookcase. Have a plan, a communications plan that includes your out-of-state contact. And that means somebody who you can trust to pass information from you back to other members of your family if your area is hit by some devastation. Sadly, in this case, it could be an earthquake, it could be a wildfire, it could be a tsunami. Figure out where to meet if the family gets separated. If somebody is at work or at a volunteer station somewhere, if the grandkids are at school, whatever. How do you get back together? Have a supply kit. And this is where it's hard to predict how long you will need to be supplied for yourself, but at least 3 days. And there is a checklist coming up with other references back to the California ready.gov websites. And that's what these links are on the slide deck. Homeowner's insurance earthquake policy, because your standard homeowner's insurance does not cover earthquake damage. You have to have a separate policy for that. And if you can, if you, for example, own your own building, make improvements to help keep it sturdy, fix structural flaws that may cause you harm in an earthquake. I know most, if not all buildings, homes now have to have a automatic gas shutoff in case of earthquake, which is a wise thing to have. So please check around your building and look for potential hazards that you can take a moment to repair or get more information about to keep yourself safe. Slide, please. All right, having a plan. So this first item here, my hazards at California Office of Emergency Services.ca.gov is kind of an interesting link. I've looked at my area in Culver City because you can go to that website, dial in your zip code, and it will tell you what kind of hazards you will face in a major earthquake. In my case, here in Culver City, it's liquefaction. It is the ground turns into a less than solid form and things start to sink and move around and get real loose. So you can do that with your area. Just go to My Hazards at Cal Office of Emergency Services.gov, ca.gov, and find out what kind of hazards you may encounter after a big earthquake. Make sure you have an out-of-state contact, as I mentioned before, somebody who does not live in the area, but with whom you can trust, like the phone numbers, cell phone numbers of your family, and that would be your contact to get information back to your family. Have evacuation routes out of your house. Figure them out and print them and make sure everybody knows what they are. Contact information, that includes your out-of-state, your insurance agent, fire department, emergency services, and family members. A relocation spot where you can collect your family back together. If your house is too damaged to be occupied, then you need someplace else to rally the family. and share your plans. Make sure everybody has an understanding of what they are. Even if they're not living next door or not in this state, they should have an idea of, say, where you would go if you have to leave your home. Slide, please. All right. Building a kit to be self-sufficient. If there is a large enough seismic event, we're talking about big earthquake here, to damage roadways, bridges, power infrastructure, water lines, whatever, you're going to need to be self-sufficient for a minimum of 3 and possibly longer days. So you need a kit for your family, for your home. What I used to tell them when I was giving this to new employees, you actually need 3 kits. One for your home, one for your workstation, and one for your car. Because you don't know when that earthquake is going to hit. You could be just traveling down the freeway or a surface street somewhere. So in your kit, along with water, food, you need little bits of extra personalization. Contact lenses or a spare pair of glasses, prescriptions. I know I take a couple of meds every day, so you got to have enough to be able to carry yourself through. Important paperwork, and that includes ownership documents, insurance documents, family papers like marriage certificates, birth certificates, and in paperwork, I call cash paperwork too, because if there's a large enough seismic event, there's going to be impacted utilities, but no banks are going to be open. Nobody's going to be able to slide your credit card so you can buy something. So you need to have cash, and not big money like $100 bills, because you don't want to buy a bottle of water for $100. They're not going to give you change. So small money. Hygiene products, and that's both for men, women, and kids. If you have grandchildren with you or nearby neighbors, they need to have something to keep the kids occupied. Kind of like now before school started with the COVID-19 pandemic. Pet supplies. You need to keep your pets, they're part of your family too. You need to keep them supplied with food and water, maybe meds as well. The etc., that gets to be a real long list, but battery operated appliances, radios for information, flashlights to be able to see in the dark at night. I don't know how long the battery is good for on your Game Boy, your cell phone, or your computer, but you may need some extra power supplies for that, just to keep in touch. You can buy kits pre-made, or you can make them up your own, but either way you should personalize them for your needs. Slide, please. You can stay informed. These are a couple of local websites that you can hook onto that will provide notifications, information, and public health notices. So I have at least one of those on my phone, as well as Bruen Alert, which you can get from campus. I got it when I was an employee. I don't know as a non-employee if you can get Bruen Alert, or retiree, I should say. Slide, please. But you can bookmark Bruen Safe Online, bso.ucla.edu, that will give you verified information. Maria writes, yes, retirees can get Bruen Alert. Thank you, Maria. Very cool. It basically has 2 pages. Each page has a whole series of information links, as well as what to do in case of. And if everything is operating normally on campus, you will see the green bar with everything operating as it should. And then down below are the links to the Bruen Twitter page, the newsroom, campus maps, and as I said, what to do if. If something goes bad and an emergency is declared, that means the Office of Emergency Management will take charge of the response. Then the type of emergency will show up in a red bar on Bruen Safe Online. And you can then find out about the emergency, and then you will also have those links to the information, verified sources from campus about what to do and what is the actual story. Slide, please. So, if an earthquake occurs, large enough, even if it's a small one, it's good practice to take care of yourself right away. If you're in a car, pull over and stop. If you're in bed, face down and cover your head and neck with a pillow. If you're outdoors, stay away from buildings, and I would also like to include trees, power poles, light poles, anything that could fall on you. And basically duck cover and hold. Don't stand in a doorway. More people have come away with broken fingers from doors closing on them by standing in a doorway. Better to get down, get low, get underneath something, and hold on. Don't run outside immediately. A lot of people have been injured by falling debris coming off of buildings. So wait it out. Wait till the shaking stops. Next, please. Thank you. So this is a great set of pictographs. Drop, cover, and hold on, but several different scenarios, a little more geared to our constituency. So get down or hold on and wait. Cover your head and neck if you can't get under a piece of furniture. Thank you. Next slide, please. All right. If an earthquake has just happened, there can be a lot of serious consequences. Damage to building, leaking water and gas lines, down power lines, all hazards that you need to avoid. So be aware that there will be aftershocks, but no one can say how large they'll be or how soon they will follow the initial quake. So just be ready and follow the same instructions. If an aftershock occurs, get down, get underneath something, and hold on. If you're hurt, check yourself out. And if you're okay, make sure that you can get up and get out and help others if you have the training. And there are a number of organizations like the Red Cross or your city's CERT training and the LAFD, for example, have classes where you can learn how to aid others. If the building you're in is damaged, get outside after you get hard-soled shoes on. And if you have access to other safety gear like goggles, dust masks, gloves, take those with you. If the building is damaged, try not to go back inside. Just get outside and keep away from things that might fall on you. If you're trapped, protect your eyes, your nose, and your mouth. So anybody who's still got their COVID masks, Oh, you can't see that very well. I'm sorry. COVID mask, that will be a good start. But if you are trapped, try not to yell out if you can avoid it, but use a bang on a pipe or make some noise, or use a whistle to call attention to yourself. They will be able to hear that better. Send a text. Shouting, you'll just get inhaling more of that dust, perhaps, and that will just cause a lot more difficulty. So make noise, but not by shouting. Slide, please. Continuing on, if you're in, anybody in a beach city, for example, or a low area, you might experience tsunamis. I'm about 3 blocks from Bologna Creek, so if there is a tsunami, that will send water back inland via the creek. So we'll see how that works out. If you are in a tsunami zone, get to higher ground or go inland as best you can. Don't know how clear the roadways will be, but get out of the way. Text messages may be easier to send than voicemails or phone messages, so try that. Once you're safe, on your phone or your radio, battery radio, listen for emergency information and instructions. You can get them, and I'm sure that social media will be there. And I like to think that social media is a wonderful thing, but sometimes it is just one person's opinion about what's going on. So try and get verified information from either a news source like KNX, for example, or NOAA, and find out what the real story is. Be careful during post-disaster cleanup. If you have the ability and tools and help, you might be able to get back into your home. I don't know if it'd be in a livable condition, however, but wear protective clothing, pants, long sleeve shirts, work gloves, leather gloves, and sturdy, thick-soled shoes. You'll be walking through potentially broken timbers, concrete, glass. So keep yourself safe. And I presume this Red Cross Safe and Well website, and I have not used it to speak of, so I presume you register there after the quake has happened, after it's subsided. So as a way for others to check in on you, in addition to your out-of-state contact information. A slide, please. All right. This is places where you can go to get information from the campus sources. So www.oem.ucla.edu, Bruen Alert at UCLA OEM, and Facebook, Twitter, and they're all into social media. So there's lots of ways of getting verified information. So link up with folks on campus and your neighbors and keep yourselves safe. All right, let's see what we have in the chat, if there are any questions.
There's no questions in the chat, but I can open it up to people if they have questions that they want to ask about anything earthquake related. You're more than welcome to unmute yourself. This is a really great presentation. It's good to know. Is there a certain type of, I guess, emergency bag that you would recommend? I see them, they skyrocket right after an earthquake. So should you just go on Amazon and purchase one with the MREs in it?
You can get emergency supplies from a number of agencies, not from the government necessarily, but yes, Amazon is one. There are other local emergency and survival stores like More Prepared down in Torrance, and there's one out in Van Nuys. I can't think of their name off the top of my head.
That's one that I need to know. One in Van Nuys.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there, yes, as shortly after an emergency happens, there's usually a run on supplies, people trying to catch up, but they have a boatload of material out there. Like I said, you can make your own kit by plucking it off the items off the shelf from a list that they have there, or you can print from ca.ready.gov, or you can buy a prepared kit, and they have ones that are 2-person kits for 3 days up to 1,000 persons for 3 days. Comes in a barrel. There's a question from Judith.
I saw Karen's hand up for a while too. Karen,
okay.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Most often we're going to lose internet. So it's great to have all these sites, but we're not going to have, if we don't have electricity, we don't have internet to communicate. So texting is one thing that we can do. And what are the other non-internet options for us to reach others? Like our phones may not be working if lines are down. What is the best way to interact?
I would say that if you have a hardline phone, that might work. Although in an emergency, in a big quake, a lot of those, if you can find a payphone, will be jumped off the box. But having a hardline phone is a good idea. Reserving your battery power on your cell phone as best you can, and have a emergency battery source for that, whether it's the battery in your computer or a standalone little battery.
Yeah, I bought a solar battery that you can just leave it out on your porch and keep it, sit it in the sun, and then it stays charged, and you can recharge your phone nonstop because you're using the sun.
And there are a lot of small radios that have separate power sources, like a battery, a solar battery, and a hand crank, yes, that come in combinations with a flashlight and this and that.
I want to say that in the building we live in, we do not have, our phones are not really traditional landlines. You could consider them a landline, but it's all digital today. I live in a big condominium association. So just be sure and check that out.
For that, you probably have to talk with the landlord, yeah? Or the homeowners association?
Right. And I was also going to suggest one thing. I got, after the '94 earthquake, I got a damage supply kit, you know, with crowbar, work gloves, waste deposit kits, because you won't be able to use a toilet quite probably, and all sorts of things like that. And you can purchase one of those kits as well, which is different than really an emergency 3-day supply.
I agree. I have one of those porta cans myself. And when it's not in use, it holds supplies in it. So you can pick it up and take it outside. And you should probably keep those supplies and let people know where they are, that you can easily get to and then get out of the house, for example. You may not want them directly by your garage door, for example. Yes, Aisha.
Do you know the expiration date on these things? Like if it says it lasts 3 years, is it really going to be bad? I think I have one from, I know it's probably 2012, but if an emergency, can I still eat those old expired MREs? Or, and bottled water, how long does bottled water last?
Well, yeah, for some reason they chose on a lot of those emergency kits to put in packets of water that, like the food, have expiration dates, but it should last a while longer past that date. I can't say specifically how long, although I did try one of those protein bars that they stuck in there, and was a couple of years after the expiration date. I did not become ill, but it wasn't very tasty.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
All right.
But keeping up on those is a wise thing. And lots of water. It's a gallon of water per person per day, whether you're our age, your grandkids, or your pets. A gallon of water for hydration and hygiene per day.
Forgot about hygiene. Yeah, that's important. Okay. Any other
Being able
questions?
to keep clean.
So we're right about 9:45. So any other questions that people might have about emergency preparedness, whether you're home, in your car, you might not actually feel the earthquake if you're in your car, I would think, just because, unless it's a really, really big one, you might not feel it.
You could probably see things change, like trees and signs and street lights moving, rather than actually feel the quake itself. But if you pull over, don't park underneath a big sign or a street light.
Or an overpass.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, again, if there's no other questions, thank you again, Michael. That was wonderful. I think you did a great job filling in. If anyone want to see the presentation slide, I can always send it. You kind of need the dialogue to go with it, so I'm not quite sure if we'll send the slides over just by themselves. So again, thank you for participating. We do have another program coming up on Monday. We've had a lot of retirees let us know that they're having anxiety or depression or even issues with the social isolation that they're experiencing now with COVID. So we were able to have the UCLA Retire Counseling Services give us a presentation on local resources and referrals to mental health supportive services in the community. So that is on Monday at 11 a.m. If you could join us, all the information would be on our Retirees at UCLA event website, which I'll put in the chat. Let me see if I can actually put in I'll put in the actual link. So if you're interested, you can register for that presentation. Just give me 1 second. Everything takes 2 or 3 steps to get to. But okay. So I'm gonna put the link in the chat for people who may wanna sign up for this presentation. You can just click the link and register there. And I'll also include it in tomorrow's newsletter, so in case you wanna know more about that presentation as well.
That's cool.
Okay.
Very good.
Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon or morning. Have a great morning, and talk to you soon. Okay. Bye.